Hello and welcome, I'm JD, and this is the October update for Nebulous Fleet Command. There's quite a few things in here which I think you'll really enjoy, so let's have a look at it. So if you've seen some of the earlier videos when I was doing a lot of casting of Nebulous Fleet Command, one of the things that I tried was this overlay. Now, I wanted to provide a little bit more information to people, particularly people who are watching at home, who was playing, what types of fleets they had. And this was a very labor-intensive way to do it. And I can happily say now that we don't have to worry about us creating these types of overlays, as they are now incorporated into the game. So let's have a look at the new spectator mode. I'm in a online lobby with 4 computers on each side. And if we just sort of go around what's in this new overlay, you can see that at the top of the screen, we've got not only the player's name, but also the prefix of their ships. And that'll correspond with the player list, which you can open within the game. Then located on each of these overlays is all the ships that are present. So they'll tell you an icon of the ship, what they are, and then a few pieces of information underneath. So we can see things such as what the movement orders are for that particular type of ship. So this one's in formation, this one's moving to position. We also have things where it's where if you're orbiting, you'll get that icon appearing here. We also then have the ability to not only see ammunition loadout, but we also get to see the missile loadouts. So missile loadouts and ammunition loadouts. As they degrade, we can see them change from green to yellow to red. One of the bugbears that I originally had trying to cast these games was also identifying who was being able to be spotted. So here we can see that this ship here, FFG, not only was it tracked by enemy sensors, but then it became locked. And if I double click on something, it'll actually jump to where that ship is and then highlight it as a red circle. So if I click another ship, not only will it get the red circle there, but it'll then highlight on the panel. When you're introducing ships or you want to see who's on what team, you can now just jump around either in the tactical view or just in the game view. I've just loaded a lot of starter fleets in here, so they're just going to town with missiles. And so I think that solves one of the major bugbears that I had early on. One of the other things that we can now see is not only the panels, so I can't interact with anything here, but we can see that the mount panel that the player would see if it's loading, if it's damaged. We can see not only the damage control board, but one of the features now is that as a ship takes damage, and you can see as the rounds are impacting onto this Corvette, various icons down here are flashing white, and that's showing that this ship is actually taking damage and where those modules are taking damage. And so when we look at things with missiles or beams, you'll actually be able to start to see where, if I click over here maybe, you'll be able to see which of the components or the modules are actually taking a significant amount of damage. So whilst that's all going on, back to the mount panel, we can see the speed, their thruster power, their signature size, as well as their sensor coverage. If panels have been destroyed, so we don't have to get nice and close anymore, we can have that view while still maintaining a bit of presence and looking around the battlefield. And we can also open up the damage control board and see where restores are being made or repairs are being directed, as well as what are fires. We can see here that the DC locker has 1 restore left. It's also got fire and atmospheric leaks. The missile programming bus has a fire as well. Now I can't interact with any of these, so here we can see that it's firing the bottom battery, the front battery, the rear battery, and it's got a lock on a track. And if I right click on any of these, which I'm doing now, none of those will be interfered with. So spectators will have a much greater degree of freedom when having and information that not only they can make decisions off and have a look at what's going where, but also to provide you, the viewers, a little bit better experience so that you also know what's going on without always having to refer back to what the caster is saying. And hopefully that gives you a little bit more information, makes the viewing pleasure a little bit better. So once you've finished in the battles, let's get out of here. Let's go back to the main menu. Yes, I am the host. I am going to bail on all these computer players. If you leave early, you'll see what is the old battle report, where you won't get all the detailed information, and it's going to give you a bit of a warning down here as to why. So if I just jump back into a smaller game with CPU only, so not online, and I now exit out of this, then we're going to be able to see the new battle report. You can now click on one of the ships or any of the ships here, and it'll provide a different breakdown of all the different components in various categories. So we have not only the designation, the hull number, the prefix, and the ship's name. You have the combat power, which will be your points value of that ship, how far it's gone, how much crew is left, how much damage you've dealt. I won't read all these to you. It's a bit of an overall summary, such as survived with no significant damage, or if I come down here, minimal, heavy, and did anyone perish? I don't think so. You'll then also have overall efficiency ratings in these donut circles, and it'll go from not applicable if you, for example, don't bring any missiles on this ship, terrible, fair, I think there's good as well, good, and then there's also excellent. And if you hover over it, it's going to tell you just a little bit about what makes up those efficiency values, and then whereabouts within that donut you are. So this one was at 60%, 50% on the dot, and then 12%. So if we have a look down, enemy ships engaged, these are the ships you've actually engaged and not just spotted. So if you don't actually fire on anything because you don't have any offensive weapons, for example, if you have a scout, I'm just seeing if we have any scouts here. I don't think we do. Otherwise, this ship's fired on 2. It fired on Judy and the Sharp of Tamar, and it tells us out the last track number, and if it's destroyed, it'll also come up with that. You then get a breakdown by all your different types of weapons and the ammunition that's there, how much ammunition you carry, what you expend, how accurate you are. These are all things you can then use to tweak your ship. For example, if you are bringing too much of one thing and not enough of another, or if you never use AP and you don't want to use AP, then you can make those modifications there. It also has things such as battle short time and firing time. And time on target, I believe, with a beam, how much time the beam actually stayed on target. Some of these will work out as we go, as I'm very much having a look at these for the first time in depth as well. We have things such as missile warfare, how many you carried, damaged, how many you expended, and then your actual damage. One thing that I'll bring up here, but is also available to see within the game, is that you now have the ability to see not only soft kill, but hard kill. So hard kill obviously being anything that your point defense options shoot down, and then your soft kill is how many missiles are you defeating through chaff, flares, active decoys, etc. So not only will you see this within the battle report, but you'll also see this in game now as well, which will appear on the left hand side above and below the ship cards as that summary that'll either say engagement successful or engagement failure. Continuing on, we have things such as sensor warfare. This is all about how long you are detecting with it remaining undetected in terms of that breakdown. Also tells you how long you've been using each of your jammers for. Breakdown for missile defense. You can see here that the missile defense was terrible. We expended all our anti-size 3 hybrid missiles for no effect. We used one chaff decoy but seduced no threats, and we had our defenders here do absolutely nothing. And then finally you have your area breakdown engineering. So what's your power output, time immobilized, components, damage control team. So damage control teams being I had 7 equipped on the ship through my lockers. They all survived, and if there's any of the teams that have less than 50% casualty members, they would appear here. We also have an export battle report. Now, this isn't really going to do much for the average player. So if you open it, it's just going to be an XML file. It will say where it is saved. So if you go to your save files where you would put your fleets and your missile templates, it'll say your battle reports are saved in there. Although this will most likely be useful for people who are building mods, etc., to be able to take away the exact damage outputs on each of their ships, and then use them in mods to extract that data to then take them forward and then position them at the beginning of a new battle so that they have that carryover. So if you've looked at any of the conquest modes that were run within the official Discord, that was one of the things they had to do a lot by hand. And also if you're playing on the Legends of Nebulous role-playing server, then they may be able to make use of this as well. Now, one of the things that you will be able to see that when you are playing online, the battle report will be slightly different. And that's because you'll also have the ability now to have that post discussion with your not only your team members but also with your with your opponents. I should also be able to chat to my team. I can't seem to do that at the moment, and it could be simply because it's just me and I don't actually have anyone else on my team. Now you can have those discussions of what went well, what went poorly. If you're playing with either new players or friends and you want to have that chat afterwards, you don't have to go to the Discord now. You can just keep it all within Nebulous Fleet Command. So if you're using HE kinetic penetrators in any of your missiles, you'll now also receive a warning. So previously when the armor penetration was 0, and this is because of insufficient impact velocity, you wouldn't be told that. You would simply just be told that the armor was 0. Now it's going to be highlighted red and also give you that warning. So if I come across here, you can see that there's not enough speed. If I move the slider around on the engine component, then that's going to change. The warning goes away. Whereas if I start to operate anywhere below this triangle here, or if I reduced my engine size, then you'll find that this error becomes a little bit more noticeable. So you shouldn't be taking any of your missiles now that have not enough velocity, so that your HE kinetic penetrator is actually going to do damage on the battlefield and we're not wasting 14 plus points. So a change to electronic warfare, particularly how it's represented on the battlefield. Previously, the spotlight was green. So let's have a look at that. If you had a blanket jammer, that was also had its own color, which is red. And so now comms now has its own color as well, being yellow. So let's put that on there. And so you're actually able to now layer over your target each of the different colors, make it nice and simple. If you're playing with the interruption jammer, then you're going to have a big yellow comms bubble around your ship. So here we can clearly see we have a illuminator. We can see that we have a hang up jammer for a comms, and we also have a blanket jammer for radar jamming. So a nice little change there. We can also see now next to each of the ships, so next to where it says range, and we can see that's at 4,611 meters, that there is now a new number. So if I was to scroll in a little bit here, there's a new number. And so that number is now going to change based on the distance from my ship to this ship. So what this represents is the closing or opening rates in meters. So it can be sometimes hard to tell if a ship is coming towards you, or keep that separation between, say, for example, beam destroyers. So if the number is 0, then you're holding the exact distance away. If it is negative, then you are closing. And if it's going positive, then you should be opening. So let's have a look here as I move my ship forward. And as I accelerate, you can see that we are going into a negative number because I'm actually gaining distance to that ship. And if we brake, you'll see it decrease. And let's back up. Just keep the heading focus forward. So we're now at 0. Now we are increasing the distance. That's going into a positive number, showing that we are further away by X amount of meters per second. So at 21 meters per second, you can see that that's also counting up at the same rate. If we were to stop on this ship as well, then you'll see that the number will also start to fall until it is at 0, as the same as my speed. Change here that also comes around now is identifying track numbers or jumping to track numbers. Previously, you had the ability to hook track. So if I was wanting to jump to 2552 and I was looking the other way, and someone called out in chat or voice, hey, go to 2552, I could type that in and it would jump to. Now, the problem with that, or, sometimes is that if you're not on voice, the hook track doesn't work as much. Or if you're like me, you'll type in the wrong number and then you'll have to do it again. And sometimes you'll do that 3 or 4 times in a row because you're busy focusing on elsewhere. So now what we can do, anyone can do this, is that when you're in your team chat and someone says target 2552 and you press enter, you can now actually mouse over and select the 4-digit number, which is the track number. And when you click on it, it's going to jump to that track. So again, if I am over here and someone says target 2552, click that number and it will jump to it. Once this message leaves, you won't be able to do that anymore. But again, once you've jumped to it, you'll then know where it is. You'll understand what's going on. You may be able to then come back with your hook track at a later date, or you can just say it in the chat again and it'll be able to appear. So you'll be able to do that with all the track numbers, whatever they may be. As long as there's a 4-digit track number, you'll be able to jump to it using that feature. All right, so let's talk about power consumption and the way that this is going to be changing within this update. So we're going to use this Corvette here as a bit of an example. You can see that I have exceeded my power output by 50%, which means the spyglass will not have enough power, and therefore the cannon's also going to suffer. Because previously what was occurring is each of the components within the game fall within a category for power consumption. And so generally things such as your CICs and your radar generally fall under like critical, and then you've also got high, medium, low from memory. And if you want to have a look at that, they're all found on the Nebulous Fleet Command Wikipedia page, which I'll put down in the description below. But basically what would have occurred previously, and which is you're going to see playing on the screen in the background with this exact same ship, is that even if this ship doesn't have enough power, the spyglass is going to continually attempt to draw more power, which basically then prevents the Mark 64 cannon from firing. So what does that mean now? Well, it means that if a component, for example, this spyglass, can't draw enough power because there's not enough power left in this ship. So here we can see that there's not enough power to draw the 4,000 kilowatts of power. Then instead of blocking the cannon, the spyglass will simply stop operating, which then will feed power into the cannons. And so if you have a larger list, for example, let's have a look at this template I made a long time ago. And you can see here that we have enough power. If we were to take damage to a reactor, then certain items in this list will simply turn off because they're unable to draw that amount of power. And because from my understanding, I think this is actually in order of power consumption. I haven't fully tested this theory out by going through the Wikipedia page, but it's a bit of a hunch that I have. Then the parallax here would stop working, and then you would lose the guns, but then you would still be able to maintain the rebounds, for example. Now, obviously, the energy regulators are also tied to certain things, so as they are unable to draw power, they will simply turn off. So parallax first, then the railgun, until you are able to get back under the power threshold that you are able to output. So no longer will this parallax stop these railguns from firing, and vice versa down the line. So let's see that in a bit of a demonstration using the exact same ship. We can see that there is a carbon copy of this ship out here somewhere, but because we don't have enough power, we are unable to detect the other ship via the spyglass, which we still have on this ship. And so a difference you'll notice from the earlier example with this exact same ship is that even though there is a low power on the ship, that instead of being missing the critical resource, it's now idle for the Mark 64 cannon. And I can give it an order, and then it will bear to target and fire. So now you should hopefully not be in any type of situation where just because you lose a power plant or a micro reactor, or even a larger reactor, you should no longer have to completely degrade your ship's effectiveness. Whilst radars and other weapon systems continually try to draw power, that power then becomes freed up and is able to go to the rest of the ship. Therefore, your things such as your PD networks should continue to operate. And even if you do lose the radar off one of your ships, or if you lose a rail turret, for example, or a beam turret, which are fairly power intensive, then you're still going to be able to power your point defense networks. You're still going to be able to power your jamming, for example. Because remember, anyway, you weren't going to be able to use that radar because there wasn't enough power. So now we're simply just skipping that and allowing you to use the rest of the components that you have paid for and equipped on your ship. All right, so that ends this update. I hope you enjoy some of the new features here, and it improves a bit of the gameplay experience. So as always, thanks for watching and take care.